Yeah, it's Maximum News. I'm Max at Syb. I want to talk to Syb real quick about the Fallout TV show. Syb, I watched the first 5 episodes. Where are you at? Did you finish it?
Oh yeah, I finished it first day.
Okay, cool. Now I can finally, I wasn't able to give my thoughts last week because the show had literally come out and had been out for like an hour and a half when we recorded. Now we've had some time. I haven't finished it yet. Still have 3 episodes to go. I'm going to give my impressions, and then I want to get Syb's overall impressions of the series after that. So, off the bat, great show. Everybody else is saying is that it's a great show, and they're absolutely right. I wouldn't put it above like Arcane or The Last of Us, maybe not even Cyberpunk Edgerunners at the moment, but those are like really high quality television, and that's sort of unfair at the moment.
Yeah. Arcane is a masterpiece.
Yes.
Like that, the visually, storytelling, everything, absolute masterpiece.
Yes, it's a feast for the mind and the eyes every single second you're watching that show. So for Fallout, 5 episodes in, I would say overall it's like a 7.5 or an 8, which is either a very good or a great series. As far as the things that it gets right and, elements that you can consider a 10 out of 10, Syb, I don't know if I've ever seen... I can't remember the last time that I've seen an adaptation where the tone of the pre-existing material is replicated to pinpoint perfection. What this series does is it carries over the goofiness and the seriousness of the games and applies it to every single element of that universe. So you'll be seeing people's heads flying off and having weirdly perverse fun with that. But then the next scene, you'll say the same thing and you'll be like, oh, I can't believe I found that entertaining just a couple minutes ago. And then I'll sort of be alternating between moments like that all throughout the show, along with insightful philosophical and existential commentary on the state of the main characters and where they're at in the world. Let's talk about the main characters as well. Ella Purnell as Lucy, in the lead female in the show. She's sort of a revelation. I think she's absolutely wonderful in the show. Second,
she's a wonderful actress. She came out and said that she hadn't originally played the games, but
she did,
leading up to her role, she actually played through, I believe she said, almost all of the games that she could get. And that is, and she said one of the most amazing things I've heard an actor in Hollywood say, and that was, you need to respect the fans and the original source material. Which was just stunning that somebody from Hollywood would say this.
Right. Yes. No, I even saw an interview with her and Walton Goggins and the other gentleman who plays Maximus, whose name escapes me at the moment. And they were asked trivia questions, and one of the questions was, how many vaults are there in the Fallout series? And I think she answered correctly. I think it's 120. Does that sound right? Yeah.
We know of. There's some theories about vaults and other stuff that I hope they expand upon.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And then the second question was, did the nuking happen before or after Shady said? Oh, okay. No, maybe we don't go into that right now. And then obviously I think what everybody else is saying, it's the best part of the show is probably Walton Goggins as the ghoul. I would agree. He's a dirtbag, but a lovable dirtbag. And I'm curious to see where his storyline goes for the last remaining episodes. It is interesting though, because they've set up really interesting characters with substance, but I'm just wondering how they're going to round things out in the last 3 episodes when it's 2 hours left of content. I don't know, but there's always season 2 for that. Special effects are fantastic. That there's that one scene in the trailer where you see this pink monster coming out of the sea and attacking one of those brothers Hood of Steel armor. That was just visually stunning. Seeing it actually on the show, it looked real, and it was amazing. What else? Yeah, action is fantastic. It has everything is in frame. Everything is exploited for all of its goriness and all of its brutality. it's done so wonderfully. Great use of music, great use of sound design. The only thing that I'm sort of really soft on, or no, that's not the right word. The only thing that I'm not really, I don't feel has been really fully explored or really fulfilled its potential is the character of Maximus. He's like whatever. He's fine. I do feel like they could have gone a little bit more into his struggle.
I think
Mhm.
I'm going to try and phrase this super carefully.
Okay.
I think they have done an extraordinary job of setting him up for the best character arc in season 2.
Ah, okay. All right.
And I'll like you'll see it once you go through it, but I think that each of the characters have different arcs, and his arc is definitely one where you will appreciate it a lot more, I believe, after season 2 and
Okay.
quite possibly into season 3 if we get that.
That makes
But we
me
have a soft confirmation for season 2 right now, so yeah.
right. Yeah, well, that makes me very happy because yeah, for the first 4 episodes, I was just sort of like whatever with Maximus. I did finish watching episode 5 just a couple hours ago when I was eating dinner, and it did seem like he was starting to get there with what I sort of wanted the show to do with him. So hearing that things are going to be set up in the next few episodes so that he has a pretty pivotal arc in season 2 makes me really happy. And then yeah, like aside from that, there's like one or two things here or there in terms of believability, like are they really able to meet up all in the same places all the time? Is it really that small a world in California? I don't think so. And then one or two other things here or there, but overall, I'm really happy with what they did. It's a
Mhm.
wonderful, wonderful job from Jonathan Nolan, and I don't know precisely how the season ends, but I've heard a whisper here or two, unconfirmed. But if what I'm hearing is true about what they're planning on doing for season 2, Saib, you and I are gonna have a lot to talk about.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
but we can't talk about
S-
that right now.
Season 2 setup is one of the best setups. It also explains a lot of what I heard where they were like at the end of filming the first season, I heard a lot of things and I was like, why are they doing that? What that seems really stupid, and I was getting upset and I was getting kind of fearful that they weren't thinking ahead.
Mhm.
But now I don't feel that way. And I can't say why because we haven't gone through it yet and we're not doing a spoiler cast yet.
Right.
But
Maybe we could do
I
it
think
next week if you want. I'd be down.
yeah. Well, we Ash does want to jump in on and do a spoiler cast where we talk about it, and we're in the process of bringing back the new Coca-Cola Lounge,
Hey,
doing
okay.
more Fallout related content.
Nice.
We had a big meeting about that today, and we are definitely going to be shifting in that direction because there's so much new Fallout content coming out soon that I kind of hope that we can really nail this stuff down. So yeah.
Right. It's a great time to be a Fallout fan. Now,
Hmm.
I did that. Those are my thoughts. Overall, right now, I'd say it's like an 8 out of 10, which is a great series for me, and I cannot wait to see how it ends. Now, Side, you're the Fallout guy. You finished the series. Your impressions.
So overall, I think that the show is good. It's not great. I said that last week, where it's like it's looking really good. There's a little campiness to it, and there's a little silliness to it here and there, um, and I think that that's sort of needed because of the world that you're dealing with. Because otherwise, if you get too depressy, then the show's not that good for rewatching.
Mm-hmm.
It's good for the first watch through, but it's like Game of Thrones a little bit where it's like I have no desire to rewatch Game of Thrones
Mm.
at all because it is so depressing
Oh
in
yeah,
so many different places.
that's The Last of Us for
Um
me. I can't. I can't watch.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so there is some you, by adding in humor, you increase the rate of rewatching a series to a significant degree. Um it's a very hard thing to hit, that when you watch a show that is very serious and deals with a lot of very serious issues, and I think I think my two favorites to kind of list would be like Star Trek Deep Space Nine and probably Elementary, the Sherlock Holmes New York version of Sherlock Holmes. And I do rewatch a lot of those because the acting is on point. Not the first season of, not even the first two seasons of Deep Space Nine, but the latter seasons are just like, it is absolute fire every time they're doing anything serious. And it's so well done.
Yeah.
But those shows are hard. That is such a hard thing to replicate. And if you're off by just a little bit, again, when it comes to certain shows, your rewatchability on it tanks. I don't think we have that. I think we have this ability where I am going to enjoy getting into it and watch it a second time. We're going to be rewatching it, obviously, to do kind of like a highlight episode of like, did you see this in this scene here? There's a little thing, like all these like little hidden Easter eggs.
Yeah.
There was a ton of that I know I was seeing, but I couldn't stop and admire because I was trying to get through the season as quickly as I could, so I could talk about it and stuff. But to kind of like take my excitement for the show and bridge it a little bit with some of the hyper negativity out there. There's a lot of people who are like, I hate the show so much. Fallout is dead. Fallout's still dead. Again, it's dead. There's some people that are just, they have lived in toxicity for so long.
Yeah.
And they've been fighting toxicity for so long in different kinds of toxicness that I don't think they can appreciate things anymore.
Yeah, it's like they almost never didn't learn any of the lessons from Fallout and the way that you're supposed,
exactly.
Anti-war
like I watched somebody review the show. They did 19 minutes of just pure, unadulterated hatred against the show, hatred against the actors, hatred against the directors, hatred against Bethesda, hatred against Amazon, just pure, vile, like dripping, seething venom hatred.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like I understand why, because people see things ruin around them. Like even today, we've had this huge kerfuffle about Warhammer, and I get why people get upset about this stuff, but there is this line where it's like if you digest too much of the hate, that's all you'll end up getting from life.
Yeah.
You have to learn to have a little bit of mercy, have a little bit of grace, and not to take things as seriously all the time. There are certainly serious issues, and there's certainly some important issues that and we're going to get into this in the spoiler cast. There's some lore stuff that's happened in the show that Todd Howard has come out and said, oh, now it's canon. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of hostility towards those things, and there's a hostility there because there's reasons for the lore. Now the debate is whether or not it actually fits and whether it's okay, like where the lore currently stands, and I think that's and then there's this thing where it's like updating the lore from the original games. It's like, It's hard to do. It's not an easy thing. Of course, we would love it to be done perfectly. Do I think it's been done perfectly? No, but I don't think it's been that way since the initial Fallout 3 game.
Right.
I think Fallout 3 took the game in a completely different direction. I do like the way that Fallout 4 has kind of realigned certain things, especially number one being the power armor. The power armor did not feel great in Fallout 3. It didn't feel great. It felt like blah. Like it was just blah. And that same goes for New Vegas. It didn't feel great. The Fallout 4 power armor feels fantastic.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. So there are give and takes that you kind of have to accept, and you have to accept those things in order to appreciate the show as what it is. And I think that my final point that I'll put on this before we move on is that I will say 100% the argument or the statement that main character girl is Mary Sue is not true.
Oh my God. Can you guys think for 1 second before you use that 2-word, just saying it unconsciously? It's clearly shown in the first 10 or 15 minutes of the show how she's as good at everything as she is. It's the whole point of being in the vault.
Yeah, If when and this is lore specific. In the lore, in the canon characters, there were characters who were in the vaults who were just there's even trait points and perk points for this stuff. It's called gifted. You're gifted, you have this added potential. Doesn't mean that you're good at everything, but you're better than most because you won the lottery of genetics and living in a vault and being able to perfect a wide range of skills because there's nothing else to do in the vault when you have the option of watching a TV that rotates the same like 5 minutes of content. You blow your brain on that. You can blow your brain on Pip-Boy games.
Yeah.
Like, again, they show characters going through these struggles. Or you can take every class and everything that you can do in the vault and you can maximize your learning potential, or you can fool around with your cousins. Those are the options that they've shown in the universe.
Yeah.
And those are actively true. I know a lot of military kids, a lot of military brats. Some of them took every advantage to learn everything that the military offered the kids to learn in the few places that they did that kind of a thing. And those are some of the smartest, strongest, bravest, most intelligent people that I would for sure want to be in a vault with if the world goes into, post-apocalyptic World War III insanity. 100%. And then there's other people who are lazy, completely useless, and not somebody you would want because they are a dead weight. And that is not a good thing to have in a survival scenario. Dead weight doesn't mean they're dead. It means they're dragging down every single person around you, and that one person's going to get you all killed. It's like, that's the comparison, and it's lore accurate. Plus, she's not perfect. She makes a ton of mistakes, and all of the things that she can't do, that she's not familiar with, she ends up messing up in the worst possible ways, and a lot of bad shit happens. Oh, so I swore. A lot of bad stuff happens. And so, yes, obviously, there's a big problem with people making that statement, because it's when you look at other scenarios, other stories, other game media, yes, there is a lot of Mary Sues out there. In narrative writing, when you're writing female characters, it's very easy to write them as a Mary Sue because that's just the way it gets portrayed. And there is a bit of a and if you want to be critically minded, if you want to have the ability to reason through something critically and carefully, you have to understand that you can write Superman and nobody will bat an eye. Yeah. You write Wonder Woman and you have 20 people saying, "Oh yeah, a girl can't do that." Well, she's not a girl; she's an Atlantean who happens to be basically
she's a god,
demigod.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, but no, that doesn't work that way. It's like, come on, you have to have some level of honesty. So yeah, I've seen a lot of negativity coming from certain parts of the community, and I would say that yeah, nothing's perfect. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. But at the same time, it's like you have to give and take a little bit. And I think this is what we've gotten here is good. It's not perfect, but it's definitely like better than either nothing or better than some of the worst stuff that we could have had.
Yeah. It's clear that the people behind the scenes respect the source material, and it seems like we have a good foundation upon which can be built for season 2.
Yeah. And if you want to positively influence this, make your voice heard and use honey, not vinegar, because you'll get a lot better reaction with honey than you will with vinegar. Call out the good stuff, mention some of the bad stuff, say, can we improve this stuff? And that's the healthy thing to do. I'm in a game community right now where it's like, I'm trying to reason with the people. It's like, look, you being like fanboys and offering absolutely no contradiction or confronting absolutely zero of the bad choices from the devs is just as toxic and bad as somebody who just comes in here hating on everything and spewing vile constantly on everybody around them. Yeah. It's like you have to learn to kind of give some give and take here, and if the devs don't understand this, they will end up having a garbage game on their hands. And same thing with this. It's like, yeah, the first season, I would call it a success, but they potentially will run into some big issues if they just assume that they're perfect at this point. So yeah, give a little bit of a feedback and let people know what you didn't like, and then hopefully we can see some improvement, because I want the next season to be so good that we get a lock-in for 5 more seasons.
Yes.
And we get new characters, new stories, new directions that tie in with the games, that make the games better. I want to see all that. I don't like not being able to like get progress on IPs that I love.
Mm-hmm. And I was going to make a point and I just completely slipped my mind. Oh, well, just if season 2 is going where I'm hearing that it's going to go, I want people to provide feedback on, make sure that you got your lore in a row, because okay, I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to spoil, just in case you haven't listened to or watched the entire show yet.
We'll do a spoiler cast soon. Hopefully this week or next.
Oh, there's just so much I want to say. Anyways, so guys, have you had a chance to watch the entire series yet? Have you only watched a couple episodes? Regardless, I want to hear what your thoughts are. Do you like the show? Do you dislike the show? Just leave your thoughts in the comment section below, but take a cue from what Syb said. Just be civil and constructive with your criticism if you have any. And also want to hear your praise. All right. Moving on to the next topic here. Speaking of video game adaptations, as far as movies go, we still have yet to have a truly great, Oscar level, if that's a metric, kind of video game adaptation as a movie. Sure, we've had Super Mario Brothers, which the newer one, I mean, that people liked, and then there's like 1 or 2 movies here or there that aren't necessarily good, but people have soft spots for, or guilty pleasures, like the first Resident Evil movie, the first Silent Hill movie, the original Mortal Kombat. Well, in the recent past, we've had 1 or 2 video game adaptations in the form of movies that I think are safe to say are decent or good. And for me, those are the first 2 Sonic movies. I would say that the first Sonic movie was like a above average, like 5.5, 6 out of 10 for me. It was very much more a movie that was made for kids, and kids would absolutely love the crap out of it. But there's movies that kids will love and that adults can love, and I wish that the first Sonic movie did that. But then Sonic 2 came along, and it actually accomplished its goal a little bit more in that regard for me. I would give it like a 7 out of 10. I would say it's a good movie. But beyond Sonic 2, I can't think of any video game adaptations that have really gone beyond that. Maybe Sonic 3, because, if the ending of Sonic 2 is any indication, we're going to get Shadow. And, it was an indication, obviously, because of the story that we're talking about today. I'm sorry. So, the question has been, ever since the ending of Sonic 2, is, okay, well, who's going to voice Sonic 3? Who's going to voice... I'm sorry, guys, it's really late. Forgive me, please bear with me. Who's going to voice Shadow in Sonic 3? We had Idris Elba as Knuckles. I can't remember who it was that voiced Tails. Well, we finally found out this past week who's going to be playing Shadow. And we heard about it from, initially, a YouTube pundit named John Campea. He's been on the interwebs reviewing movies for the last 20 years. He broke the news on his show and confirmed it with 2 separate sources. And then very, very soon after that, the major trades like The Hollywood Reporter and Variety and The Wrap reported on it as well. So it is confirmed Keanu Reeves is playing Shadow. Syb, I think this is pretty solid casting, given what we know about who Shadow is. Just sort of this edgy, dark hedgehog carries a gun sometimes. Probably not in this movie. But just given the type of demeanor that Keanu Reeves has and the way he delivers his lines, I can imagine that he can sort of play a caricature of himself, sort of like how he is in the John Wick movies, or when he played Neo in The Matrix, and then play that for comedic effect in Sonic 3 as Shadow the Hedgehog. So yeah, I consider this a win. I consider this this actually makes me more excited to see Sonic the Hedgehog 3 whenever that's coming out. I'm not actually sure. It might be coming out later this year. I'll double check that real quick. Side, while I'm doing that, what are your thoughts on this?
Keanu Reeves. And video gaming. He's got some interesting stuff going on there. There's a lot of people who thought that Cyberpunk failed.
I thought he was good as Johnny release. Silverhand, though.
He was, but I think the devs definitely like played too much into that.
Fine, fair enough.
And that kind of maybe hurt some of the progress in the game. Now the game is better, obviously, with the most recent expansion coming out. Game is actually quite good, and it always had that potential, but a lot of that potential got lost when they had the bad release, the initial release. They should have always canned the first gen consoles, 100%. They just can't. You just can't release a game on 10-year-old consoles. Especially when a lot of them were physically 10 years old.
Yeah.
Like it is just not feasible, was never feasible to begin with. Not saying that he had everything to do with that. That was obviously leadership over at CDPR and stuff like that. And they ignored the most, the community podcasts stated one-liner was when it's ready. And they obviously didn't follow that. So yeah, there's some issues with that. And there's some issues with him getting into some more of this stuff, but I think this is probably the best thing that he could do.
Sure.
It's the best like crossover because it makes sense. It's going to give him this like funny character, to play, in the sense that it's not a human character, obviously. And I think that's great. So I am personally looking forward to it. I think that it works. I think that it's a very good idea. Yeah. And that it should hopefully kind of like should help ease anybody who's got some like upset feelings about Cyberpunk and him and all that kind of stuff. But I think overall it's positive. I can already kind of hear his voice doing shadow lines.
I know, right? Yeah.
So all right. We'll see where this goes. It'll be interesting.
Come on. There's going to be so much. This is going to be one of the most charismatic movies ever because you're going to have Jim Carrey back as Robotnik. You're going to have him, and you're going to have Idris Elba back as Knuckles. It's going to be personality dripping from this movie. That's what's really got me excited about it. Yeah, and plus we know that even though Keanu Reeves is not the world's greatest thespian, he can be good in the right role. He was good when he did the voice of Duke Kaboom in Toy Story 4, and he just needs to tone it down and be a little bit more serious, but be comedically serious for Sonic 3, and I think it'll turn out well. I have pretty decent hopes for this movie. All right, moving on to the next story. 2023 obviously was one of the biggest years for gaming, at least in regards to the number of titles that were released and how many of those titles ended up being great. Baldur's Gate 3, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Spider-Man 2, Alan Wake 2, Resident Evil 4 Remake, Cocoon, Sea of Stars, so many different great games, and I probably only mentioned a fraction of them there. What sort of is unfortunate is when you release a game earlier on in the year, it tends to be forgotten by a lot of people towards the end of the year, like during awards season, and it's the way that it works, unfortunately, sometimes. And one of the games that sort of a lot of people tended to forget about towards the end of the year was Dead Space Remake. which came out in January or early February. I can't recall. But I played the game. As somebody who played the original Dead Space and then went to play Dead Space Remake, it's the definitive way to play the game. It's magnificent. It takes all the best aspects of the games that came after Dead Space and put them into the original game. Fantastic sound design, fantastic graphics, fantastic gameplay. And it honestly deserves to be in the conversation for some of the greatest games that released that year. And it should be noted that the game, when you contrast it with other horror titles, it did pretty decently. It sold 2 million copies. And aside from Resident Evil, which makes all the money, it's like the only game series, a horror game series that sells north of that type of number. So for it to sell that much, it says something, I would say. However, it apparently wasn't enough for the people at EA. And, people who were expecting maybe another Dead Space remake or maybe a new Dead Space game. Apparently those dreams have been quashed. According to Jeff Grubb, a very reputable leaker when it comes to games, he said on his podcast, I believe it was, that whatever they were planning on doing for Dead Space, it has been put on ice. So not technically canceled, but it's going to be a while before we see anything new from the franchise because the people that made the remake, Motive, they have their entire team either working on the new Iron Man game and whatever the new Battlefields. Yeah, I don't know whether they're working on Battlefield 2042 or whether it's a new Battlefield series. It's just something to do with Battlefield. It's too bad. Especially like in a world where a horror game that sells 2 million copies, which is significantly above average for your average horror title, for the people at EA to say that, oh, this isn't good enough. Well, I don't know. Maybe it is because it's EA. Anyway, Saib, did you happen to play the Dead Space remake, and what's your reaction to this news?
It was surprising.
Yeah.
It was surprising because how do you screw up Dead Space? Like how do you miss?
Well, it's called Dead Space 3, but
yeah, this is true. But I mean, it's just like it's one of these things where it's like they had such a strong, thing moving forward. The only way you screw this up is by releasing terrible games and then not having a vision on how to either fix or get things back on track. And I feel that that's more or less what we're having here. So that kind of sucks. So not happy about it because I think it's a mismanagement of the IP. It's a terrible loss because anytime you're shelving a product or a project going, that's upcoming, it's like, wow, could you guys find no other better way to fix this? Yeah. Like, really?
It's an IP. Well. It's a recognizable IP. It's recognized by a lot of people, like up there with, like when it comes to horror games, obviously the two Titan IPs are Resident Evil and Silent Hill. But Dead Space is up there, definitely in the top 5, I would say, just because of how great those first two games were and the remake. I wish that more mainstream gaming companies would put a little bit more effort into expanding upon their roster of IPs instead of putting all of their effort into just one or two of the biggest ones that they have. And we have a story on that coming at the end of the show in regards to another studio, or not a studio, a publisher. But very quickly before I finish, did you play the original Dead Space and did you play the remake?
Yes, but not as religiously as I've played other games.
Okay.
I don't know the lore as good as other people do. It is a game that I was always like, again, it's one of the many games that I sit back and look at and I'm like, I'm glad that's doing well. And Dead Space 1, Dead Space 2, I was like, yes, this is really pushing, this is giving giving the gaming industry something that it's missing, something that we can like expand on, something that we can like really grow into. Going all the way back to Homeworld 1, and even what was the original I'm pretty sure it started with a P. The original space exploration game where you started on a ship, and this game was so old that stars were represented with single pixels. And your ship was represented by a single pixel on the space map. It's like games like those that had this like, stop me if you've heard this before, but it's a space game. It's a space opera. Spaceship going all over the place, discovering things, and you discover the remnants of a precursor race that mysteriously vanished. Tell me if this is ringing any bells here.
Fair enough.
Like that form of storytelling is, I think it's repetitive, and it's in a lot of ways not always exactly the same, but very similar in a lot of cases. But that's because it's also so good, right? It's like the hero's journey. It's like it's so good, it's so part of our DNA as far as storytelling goes, that it's just a really cool setup. And when you see kind of games like that, I'm like, oh yes, this is awesome. I'm really enjoying this. And then you kind of like down the road, you see a lot less of it, and it kind of sucks a little bit. But yeah, no, overall, I liked where it was going, and I'm really annoyed that I think that they're really mishandling the current project, and I hope this is a healthy redirection or something, but I at this point I don't honestly know if it is, or if this is going to be another one of these IPs that's just going to get left in the dustbin because nobody knew how to take their head out their butt.
Right. Yeah. Hopefully, as soon as Iron Man is done being worked on, half of the team of Motive is being put right back on whatever the next Dead Space is going to be.
Hope so.
All right, moving on. What's going on with Roblox?
Child labor.
What?
Yeah, child labor.
How? And it's a game.
So, coming from the Roblox owner and CEO, children making money on the platform isn't exploitation. It's a gift.
Well,
how some people can say words that everybody else is like, why are you saying that? Stop what you're saying. Stop what you're saying. Stop what you're saying.
Must be what it's like to be Trump's lawyers, but go ahead.
The Roblox boss has come out and said that children are basically, he admitted straight up that yes, children are working long, grueling, unpaid hours, but really, if you think about it, it's a gift. And that's okay. So yeah, that's the thing. But
like, what are they doing that is
they're making modded content, and the modded content is the primary way that the game is growing in its growing forward.
Okay.
Majority of stuff that you're doing on Roblox is made by children. Mm-hmm. Now, in one hand, yes, that's good. One of the top creators was like 12, and he has enough money to retire.
Really?
At the age of 12.
Wow, okay.
And it is stories like that get other kids into the game, that start working on, this kind of stuff. And Roblox does very gladly take all their money that's generated by these people and definitely makes a very large profit off of it. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, they did come out and they did have this interview at the GDC where the boss basically confirmed, yes, it is exploitation if you think about it that way, but it's also opportunity. And just like, it's like, man, you know what those kids need? You know what those kids need is they need that mind and experience. They need that mind and experience. I mean, what did you think Minecraft was prepping kids for? Obviously to go to the mines where they love being. Oh my goodness, why? it's so painful to talk about this story, but yeah, um, that's what happened. He said that he got in some flames for it, I think justifiably, and it reminds us that we need to create healthy boundaries for children working in any kind of capacity. Because, yeah, some of these kids did stop going to school, did stop doing a bunch of things. Now, has that panned out for everybody? No.
Right.
Yeah, definitely not. Definitely not for everybody. For a lot of people, debatable. For some people, yes. But, I mean, that's any case, right? Like,
Go ahead.
I'm reminded of a story where this homeschooler was working in a shop at his, I think it was his uncle's or something like that, machine shop, and he was learning how to like fix cars. And they said, no, you have to be in school. So they drug him back to school, and the teacher put a problem in front of them that was basically the equation of like internal combustion. The kid nailed the answer 100%, but the teacher failed him on the grade because he didn't express it the way that he was supposed to express it. Instead of expressing it, in this very cut and dry mathematical formula, he explained the entire process in an essay that was just a masterpiece of understanding the actual concept, and he failed him because that wasn't the correct answer. And I've seen this so many times. You Google test, school quiz, teacher or the program is wrong, as has the wrong answer to the question. The question is just it's not even done in a correct way, and then you have these kids who are like, here's the answer, and it's the correct answer, but then they get a failing grade because, well, that's not the answer that they were looking for. And it's like, do you not know how to read a paper? Like what is you? So yeah, it's very akin to that, where it's like, yes, in some cases we are seeing kids do great things and making money and getting all this stuff, but in other cases, well, it's just not going very well. So you got to remember, there's always some give and take to these kinds of issues. I very, very much still am a fan of that song "Don't Stay in School" by what's his face. He got in some trouble recently, poor guy. But anyways, yeah.
I wish I knew what song you were talking about.
Boy in a Band.
Boy
in a Band.
Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Look it up later. It's a really good song. He states it clearly. It's like if the school, if the education kids are learning is not applicable to everyday life, or is not applicable to things that actually help improve their life, then it shouldn't be mandatory. It should be specialized, and that's how like later targeted growth goes. That's how it's supposed to work. So
yes, that is how it's supposed to work. And if it worked like that, my life would have been so much easier. Didn't learn anything from grade 1 to grade 12. It was only after I left school and played a lot of video games and made a career out of playing them and interpreting them for their psychological and philosophical content that I got any value of, got any true education. Go figure. All right, let's move on to the next one. God, Star Wars Outlaws. Well, what's going on with that now? They said that they were putting something behind a paywall, but we don't know if
yes.
Okay.
So the whole Ubisoft thing, this has kind of hit a wall here. Basically, Ubisoft responded. The CEO, CEOs are stepping in it this week. CEO of Ubisoft.
What else is new?
Said that no. There's the problem is that the game is overpriced, and if you want a mission with Jabba the Hutt, you have to pay $40 more. Now,
well, that's not the only thing that the $40 is supposed to be covering, right?
No, it's early access and a costume and the added mission. That's
gotcha.
It.
Okay.
Yeah, so that is literally it. So is the cost? So he's checkmated himself in this argument from the get-go, because now you have only one of two things happening here. Either he is scamming the people who are buying the game for the basic price by removing a major piece of the story, of the gameplay, by saying that you're not paying premium dollars, so therefore you don't get access to all of this content. We've removed this very enormous piece of content from the game, and you are not allowed to experience that because you are a pleb and you're not paying full price. He's either saying that, or he is saying, well, there's a very small side quest that will only take you like a very small amount of time to finish, and it doesn't really give you anything or impact anything in the game. So therefore, you're spending $40, almost, the full price of the game, again, to get something that is minute and, for the most part, pointless. That is what you were saying. There is one, like, I'm being as fair as I can, but that is what he is saying. He's saying one of those two things. Either he is essentially treating the people who don't buy the full price game as second-class citizens or second-class customers, I suppose would be a better way of saying it. Or he's saying that they've tacked on this small quest that they're charging $40, almost the full price of the game for, because FOMO.
Yeah.
And neither one of those statements are good. And you can't phrase this in well, no, they're providing a secondary experience that allows people to no. That's not what's going on here. He came out and said this. It's a small piece of content, and there are other missions for Jabba. So other missions plural. So that means does that mean 2, 3, or more? If it's 2 or 3 or more versus one mission that you're holding back on, you're charging people $40 for essentially a bonus side quest that doesn't give you anything that's impactful. That's his words, not mine. So, okay, so if you're working for Jabba for one extra side mission and doesn't add anything to your experience, then you are being overcharged. It's like it would be like ordering a hamburger, saying, hey, can I get some pickles on the hamburger? Oh, yeah. There's already several pickles on the hamburger. Oh, okay, that's great. But for basically the cost of almost another full burger, we'll add an additional pickle if you want.
Mm-hmm.
An additional pickle? Like,
yeah. So just in the interest of being intellectually honest here, it's not 3 days early access, a costume, and the mission. It's 3 days early access, the season pass, which I imagine is for the DLC, and then 2 bundles of cosmetics for the main character, her pet, her speeder, and her spaceship. So there's a little bit more there. But the point still stands in regards to this mission, though. Either you're saying that you're taken this mission, and apparently it's either so insubstantial that it might as well not really be a part of the premium edition, or it's so big and you're putting it behind the paywall for people that aren't willing to fork up an extra $50. It's a lose-lose situation. And you're talking about Ubisoft, you're talking about Star Wars, which, I mean, I have to explain why that series is going through a PR nightmare at the moment, and has been for the last several years. Yeah, it's they just don't learn, or maybe maybe they don't have to learn because there are people that are stupid enough to be like, okay, you know what? I just simply cannot wait 3 days to play a game that is at best probably going to be a 7 out of 10. No, I'm going to fork over this money just so I can get that extra mission and a couple of cosmetics that I'm probably not even going to use anyways. Yeah, it's just more Ubisoft antics that is completely nonsensical to us.
You also have to remember that the season pass with their last game, the Viking game.
Oh, Valhalla.
One of their season pass content updates gave you a way to spend more money on the game via microtransactions. So the content update was, hey, we're going to give you, by the way, we've nerfed how much resources you get, but you can now buy additional resources from the microtransaction store. This was a content update that counted for additional DLC, which was, here's a new problem. We've nerfed what you were previously able to do. Feel free to pay us money to fix that problem. So when it comes to anybody buying pre-access to summer or like season pass content from Ubisoft, I mean, probably not the smartest choice.
Yeah.
Just saying. It's not, it's with Ubisoft, you know, sometimes like if you locked your game, you know, providing, you know, you bought it on Steam, you downloaded it, and then you locked it so that it didn't do updates, and you just got the base version of the game, you would progress faster than somebody who allowed that update to come into the game, reduce the amount of materials that you were getting, and then introduce a microtransaction shop to fix that problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is a huge issue. That is extremely dishonest.
Yeah.
That is so exploitative and vile that it's kind of disgusting.
Yeah, but it's par for the course when it comes to Ubisoft. Yeah, just stuff like this. I haven't bought an Ubisoft game since like Rainbow Six Siege, which was like 6 or 7 years ago, and I intend to keep that up with the Star Wars Outlaws unless I hear it's the next greatest thing since sliced bread. But yeah, Ubisoft. All right, and then finally, let's just talk about this one thing that has sort of had a lot of people in an uproar over the last 24 hours. I'm just going to introduce this, and I'm going to hand this over to Syb, not only just because I'm starting to sort of black out because I'm so tired, but because I know this is going to put Syb into a juicy rant mode. So, Take-Two, the people who publish 2K games, but most notably, obviously, games like Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead Redemption, they announced a couple of months ago that despite their continuous decline in revenue over the last several years, they were not planning on laying off anybody else from the company, even though recently they had, for the foreseeable future. And that promise lasted for about 2 months because it was just announced today that 5% of their entire workforce of about 11,000 total employees just got laid off. And alongside that, multiple projects that were in development have also been canceled. I imagine that they're doing this because I don't know. No, I don't even know what I'm saying. I don't imagine anything why they would be doing this, because they have, if they're concerned about money, they have this game called Grand Theft Auto 6 coming out next year, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's hyperbole to say that it's going to be the most anticipated game of, it is the most anticipated game of all time, and will probably be the greatest game sales wise to ever be released. Maybe not initially, but inevitably it will, because of how huge Grand Theft Auto 5 was and how much popular it has been over the last 10 years. And yet they still felt it was necessary to lay off 5% of their workforce and cancel multiple internal projects. Who the hell knows if that's BioShock 4? Who the hell knows? Maybe if it's some other, something other than Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead Redemption. See, this is exactly what we were talking about before in regards to the whole Dead Space thing. It's like just focusing in on 1 or 2 or 3 of the biggest IPs instead of allocating resources to other stuff that can turn into the next big thing. There's none of that anymore. It's the same thing with Take-Two. Anyways, that's set up. Syb, I need to take a swig of water. Go at it.
So this is something that this has been in the plan since February, they said. And at that time they said, we're not looking at laying off a bunch of people. And then 2 months later, they're like, we decided to lay off, 579 people.
Yep.
And in the process of firing 579 people, the guy who decided to fire them still makes an average of, I believe, $43 million a year
mm-hmm. Yep.
from the company. That's a lot of money. That probably would go a long way in helping some of those people. But they also canceled the game or multiple games, from what I'm hearing, which again is like, I know that there's this thing that there's this thought that goes around in the professional gaming. Oh yeah, it's okay to cancel a lot of projects to get that one project that's just perfect. Blizzard has a bad habit of doing this. And to which my response is, you're an idiot. I'm sorry, but you're an idiot. If you believe that that's the way that things go, you're an absolute and complete total idiot. There is no project that I could not take and turn around within a short period of time, because that's just the way that games are. If you build a platform and then you expand on that, you will find a market if you do it. And it's so obvious, and it's so infuriating when you hear this. A lot of people have played a couple things. So a lot of people played Van Buren, which is the unofficial Fallout 3 that was happening before it got bought out by Bethesda, and then Bethesda made their own Fallout 3. That game, really good for what's there, for what they had, for what they were working on, really good. It was moving in the right direction. Other than the fact of overrunning their budget, the game had promise, and if they had managed to get maybe like 40-50% more done on the project, it would have been probably one of the greatest games in that era of gaming. Let's look at which one? Blizzard and their Project Ghost. The first person or third person, then first person, then back to first person or third person, then back to first person game where you played as what's her name? The ghost character, the phasing, what do they call those characters in StarCraft?
Oh, I don't know. I never played it.
Oh, okay. Well, it's you play this like psychic sniper who goes in on these missions and stuff. Again, a version of that game is available for you to play on, if you know where to look for it. It was canceled. It was never brought out. Really good, very good. Had amazing potential. And it's basically done. Star Wars 1313, another game where basically done, amazing. Everybody I've ever talked to that has played it, amazing, good, solid. Let's go back to Fallout Online, the MMO. Again, really good for what was there. The idea that you have to cancel and trash projects constantly is just mentally deficient in something. It's like, hey, we've built the car, we've got almost everything done on it, but the steering's a little wonky. All right, demo the car, turn it into scrap metal, and start over from scratch. Hold on now. I'm pretty sure something can be done to fix that. Now, yes, there is issues with like foundational issues, but we're not talking about somebody going out to a physical property and pouring a concrete foundation and then realizing later that the foundation is falling apart because the chemical composition in the concrete wasn't correct. That's not a digital thing that happens in the digital workplace. You can take any project, any video game, and recover vast majority of the assets from that game. The only thing you lose out on is this mindless back and forth yo-yoing of the developers, where you go in 1 week, you say, hey, we're making this full FPS, scrap and delete everything that has to do with third person perspective. And then a week later, you know what? I changed my mind. Let's go back to doing third person. Scrap everything that has to do with first person. And then they do that, and then he comes in the next week and says, you know what? I've changed my mind. Let's have this as an isometric experience. Delete everything that, it's that's the kind of like stupidity. And that, for the record, that happens a lot. That happens a lot. There's a lot of lead devs in companies, especially CEOs, who walk in and say to their team, hey, can we do this? Make this a thing. I just played this in this game, and I thought it was really cool. stop what you're doing, trash everything, delete what you're working on, and move on to this.
Skull
I want
and
you
Bones.
working on this ASAP right now. Again, Skull and Bones is a great example. They could have released like 4 different variations on Skull and Bones, offered it for $20 a piece, and they would come out ahead of where they are here by this release by probably like astronomically larger amounts. Like just again, the stupidity of somebody who comes out and says, "Yeah, you know, we're canceling projects that were, you know, about $200 million worth of stuff that we put into it." There is no situation in the world where that's a better financial move than just putting something out with that content at a reduced price. If you really don't think it's up to quality, fix it, make it like presentable, then put it out for free if you need to. Like the just throwing it into the incinerator is the dumbest, most stupidest thing I have ever heard, and I hear it so much in game development. Yeah, we're 3 years into a project. We have a working title. It's in early beta stages, cleared alpha. It's really good. It's got visuals, but we're scrapping the entire thing to work on a different project. Are you insane? Are you insane? This is the dumbest thing that anybody could do. You're throwing away something that has tangible quality. Yeah, it might not be up to what you think you want to have associated with a title like, you know, Take-Two, but let's face it, Take-Two has also put out some pretty terrible games in the past, so it's not exactly like that would be a new thing, a new experience for people, you know. And again, it's like you guys burnt $200 million on that instead of adding more content to Red Dead Redemption's multiplayer. Like, really, that was somebody sat down and decided that was something that had to happen.
150 million copies sold, and basically they decided not to support it as, like, okay, I understand not supporting it to the same degree that you supported GTA 5, but God, you should have done a whole lot more and handled it with a whole lot more care. Especially, where the hell was the Mexico DLC? Mm-hmm. The map is basically okay. I'm not going to get into that because it's already been an hour.
So the other thing that Take-Two did, which, I mean, again, garbage leadership at that company. In 2022, they spent multi-billion dollars to merge with Zynga because of all those smartphone games that were just clearly the pinnacle and apex of gaming and would definitely quadruple in value in the last year. Oh wait, no, that didn't happen. Why? Oh, probably has something to do with them acquiring Zynga. Probably about 8 years too late.
Yeah.
Again, the mentality on these people of like, hey, what's the current market cap on Zynga games? They're probably at like mass market, you know, saturation at the moment. So we're definitely not going to see a double. We're not going to see a triple for sure, like 100%. That's just an impossibility. Seeing it double is almost impossible as is. So small, minor gains over the next few years on top of what it's currently worth. You know, I've talked about this before. There's some fools out there who believe that if you build the company and it doubled in the first year, and then it doubled in the second year, and then doubled in the third year, and doubled in the fourth year, doubled in the fifth year, that's just going to keep on doubling. There are some idiots out there who think like that because they don't know what market saturation is. Guess what? When you're currently selling a pair of like perfect shoes, yeah, we'll use shoes in this example. If you're selling a perfect pair of shoes to everybody on the planet, the next year you're not going to be selling another, you know, twice that number,
right? Unless
there's twice the number of people that just suddenly show up from the ether. You know, maybe Bermuda Triangle spits out, you know, another 8 billion people. Right. That's not going to happen. Right. And yet these companies are so stupid to think that, oh yeah, we can continue to double our users permanently. It's like at some point you're going to run out of people. So yeah.
Yep, it's just I can easily envision a future where if Grand Theft Auto 6 doesn't live up to everybody's expectations, which are rightly sky high, that we're going to see happen with Take-Two and Rockstar and 2K, what happened to Activision Blizzard these past few years, which is sad. All right, that'll do it for us, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning into the Maximum News Show. Sorry to end on that dour note, but take solace in the fact that I'm going to take solace in the fact that the Final Fantasy 16 DLC is out tomorrow. Hey, it'll be ready by the time this podcast is up and ready. And, there's a whole bunch of other things to look forward to, especially next month with Hellblade 2, my most anticipated game of the year, and a whole bunch of other stuff as well. But yeah, if you guys have any thoughts on any or all the stuff that we talked about in this episode of Maximum News, please leave your thoughts in the comment section below. I want to thank Syb, as always, for doing the show with me. Syb, anything you want to say before we're done?
The AI podcast is out.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. Yes.
It released just recently. It is me sitting down with an actual voiced AI talking in live back and forth feedback. He even interrupts me every once in a while. It was a very surreal experience. Check that out now. It's very interesting. And it's going to be something that we're going to keep toying with. So
nice. Yeah, I'll watch that tomorrow morning when I'm eating breakfast. And you guys can find me on all the regular forms of social media, just at Max Derrat. I'll put links to my stuff in the description box below. And make sure to check out Cnometry too, which is Ash's channel, the one of the other prominent members of the Triple S League, and all of his wonderful videos on Futurama. I'll put a link to that there as well. All right, guys, that does it for this episode. See you until next week. I want to remind you, as always and as per usual, stay yellow.
Goodbye.